Good afternoon. I was gonna say good morning, but good afternoon. Is it morning still?
It
It's
is still
11. So
morning.
I
Yeah,
say
it's still
morning.
morning. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still
it's morning.
morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Barely.
Right.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Power Shift podcast. We have as our special guest this week Assistant Director Kiara Gray. She used to be on my team, but then education stole her because she is such a fabulous expert in education.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. I always love to give the compliments to people who deserve them. So
Yes, thank you.
I'm always going to give you compliments.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kiara, and then we'll start the questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it and look forward to our conversation. My background, coming from the policy team, as you said, prior to that, I was a classroom teacher within JCPS. I taught social studies. I've taught seven different topics with six different grade levels, um, five different grade levels. My apologies, 8 through 12, and have I'm a graduate of JCPS, so I have been in the system as a student, as an educator, as a community member, and as an advocate. I have nieces and nephews who are in JCPS currently. And then in my time at the league, I've been our education policy strategist and now our assistant director. And through that time, I've been able to work with a variety of coalitions and sit and do research and partake in the work to help support our students as for example, fighting against Amendment 2 to ensure that our public tax dollars stay with our public school students and that we are, protecting this system to make it as equitable as possible.
See, didn't I tell y'all? Did you hear that resume? Wonderful. Awesome. You said something that made me want to ask this question, and it wasn't really something I thought of, but on the power shift, we are talking about how we get 52,000 registered voters to show up at the November election, right? Those are Obama level numbers, right?
Yes.
Um, we don't need to just be there when there is somebody we love on the ballot. We need to be there every time,
Right.
right? Every
Hmm.
time. So one of the things that I thought was interesting that what you said, you mentioned Amendment 2. Some of our listeners, some of our watchers may not know what Amendment 2 is. Can you give a little brief synopsis on that and what you did to help the state? Really, it was a statewide coalition, the
Hmm.
state and the local people, education industry, not industry, but the local school board.
Yes. So Amendment 2 was on the ballot in 2024 due to some legislation that was passed during that legislative session to change our Kentucky Constitution. Within our Kentucky State Constitution, it outlines that our public tax dollars can only go to funding what they call common schools, which are what we know now as public schools. And so within the last couple of decades, as we're seeing, we know mostly in Louisville are private and parochial schools, but we're seeing other private schools and charter schools and potentially some for-profit schools that are coming into existence and are needing the funding to start and sustain their programs and are wanting to partake in our tax dollars and the systems that they are and the education that they are offering is not always rooted in equity and rooted in um, providing the best for our students, even though it does provide another option. They do not have to follow the guidelines that our common schools and public schools do. For example, providing differentiation for students with IEPs and services for students with 504 plans. They do not have to provide language services for students who are non English speakers, as well as some of the behavioral and emotional supports that our students are needing as well. And so Amendment 2 was a way to and go around our Constitution and try to give us an option to fund those schools using our tax dollars. However, the reality is the majority of our state, I think about 54% of our state, does not have access to private schools currently. Like the infrastructure is just not in place. The only schools they have access to are their common schools. It is only Louisville, Lexington, and a small portion of Northern Kentucky that have access to the infrastructure currently. And so, again, it creates this inequity across our state, especially for our families and communities in our rural areas that, don't have access to this infrastructure. So, we are part of the coalition that is Protect Our Schools Kentucky, and that is a cross-state coalition that has advocated and engaged in fighting against Amendment 2 in 2024. We were
let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What did y'all accomplish? Tell me what you, I mean, I know, and I was
Right. So
very happy.
very, very exciting through that activation and engagement with Kentuckians all across the Commonwealth, not just in Louisville, not just Lexington. We were able to, in all 120 counties in our state, we're able to vote no against this amendment to protecting our public tax dollars for our public school students and for our
Yes.
families, to support our communities and educators. In a lot of areas, our public school systems are, some of the largest employers. So again, making sure that we are properly funding these systems do not only benefit our young people, which is the highest priority, right? But it benefits communities, it benefits the economy, and benefits a lot of different ecosystems that we need to support in our state. And so we were able to fight against that. We are currently still in existence and fighting for, advocating for a larger budget for education, right? As we are
chronically underfunded education, right?
Right, especially with the current economy and the current rates of inflation. We are, we see some higher numbers or a little bit of increase in these numbers each year, but not in comparison to the cost that it is now taking to provide the services and resources for our students.
Right. I really was excited about that win, because public money should stay for the public. If you want to send your child to private school, then that is your choice. That is your right as an American, but you got to pay for it yourself.
Right.
Right. You don't get to take my money and send your kid to a school that I don't have any control over, or I don't have any say over, or I don't get to say who gets in. You're gatekeeping the information or the school for only one particular demographic, one particular group of people. So I was really excited about that win. Let me ask you, when you worked for me, and also I think you do this now, you watch or attend JCPS. That's the local, obviously that's the local school board. You attend those meetings. Tell me why it's important for people to attend those meetings and to vote for school board members.
Yes. So this year, especially since again, due to a change from this legislative session, we are going to see a completely new school board potentially. We are, especially the way that it is broken down, we are going from 7 members to 5 members. And so we are going to need to be very intentional in paying attention to the candidates and making sure that we are voting in candidates that are truly reflective of our majority minority districts. But
okay, let's stop right there on that point. Black people of color are a global majority, right?
Yes.
First, but
yes,
in America, we are a numerical minority.
Yes.
So when you say we're a majority minority school district, what does that mean? Break that down. Be plain about what that actually means.
Yes. So throughout the districts, right, the close to 100,000 students, we are seeing that the majority of those students fall into what you have said is the numerical minority class, right? The cultural or the global majority, right? So that includes Black and brown people, that includes immigrants, right? That includes non-native English speakers, right? And so again, providing representation for that collective, right? We are going to need to be intentional to vote for people who are representing and speaking and knowledgeable and intentional in including those communities in their decision making
Right.
as they're having that power to do so.
Right.
It is not, and it is not just going to be, again, native or not native. Um, it's going to be, we're going to need some immigrant representation.
Yeah.
We are going to need non-native English speaking representation, again, in order to pull our district in the way that it needs to be pulled, to meet all of our students where they are.
Right.
And watching those school board meetings is helpful in seeing how the decisions are being made, who is making the decisions, when
Right.
they're being made, the questions that are and are not being asked. To then, there's also the opportunity, if you are able to, the meetings are shared virtually, as well as the opportunity to go in person to Van Hoos.
Yeah.
Sign in, show your ID, get wanded, and then find a seat. It's a very, very simple process. You
Yeah.
can sign up to speak and share testimony, if you would like to do so. So that falls into sharing experiences with board members in respect to your area or a specific school or specific instance. That can be, again, offering maybe some additional questions,
Right.
and feedback into some of the decisions they're making prior to them making those votes and decisions, and just being on public record, into here's the information and the connection that we've offered with the school district, and then moving forward in doing so. There's also a lot of really great information that's shared in these meetings, in the updates and the work that's being done currently, within the goals and guardrails within the district, the racial equity plan,
Right.
the what's the updates within busing and transportation. That is a very
Right.
regular update in agenda item into the meetings.
Mhm.
And so, again, being it is important to be knowledgeable and be aware of these issues, so that when we are getting to these candidate forums that we're
Yeah.
having in
Yeah.
August,
Yes.
plug that in,
Yeah. Thank
that we
you.
can ask those questions, and that we can make sure that our candidates are considering, what is your plan to hopefully restore transportation to students, or restore, options and equity for students to within the schools that, we do have transportation to. How do we make
Right.
um, those
So
options, viable?
Jordan, our producer, is putting down in the comment or the on the flashing on the screen how you can find out more about our JCP as candidate forums. You can go to the powershift26.org. And there's upcoming events. We have 5 for all the 5 districts coming up in August. Hopefully Kiara will be able to attend some or watch some, because we're going to try to live stream them. Don't quote me on that, but we're trying to get that ready. We also have in our up in our corner always pledge to vote. We want you all to pledge to vote. We want 52,000 registered voters to show up for November. What we always say is we don't really have a registration problem, although we do need people to register. We have a population of registered voters who vote irregularly. Like, I need you to vote every single time. What I always say is I will vote if it's just for dog catcher, right? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
they're just trying to just round up the animals, I'm like, I need to know who that person is. I need to know they're going to
Mm-hmm.
treat the animals with respect. Who do
Yes.
I have to pick from, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also have in our box how to learn more about JCPS. I think their website is pretty dense, but it does definitely have where the school board meetings are, the address for Van Hoos, when the school board meetings are. So I encourage everyone listening to go out there and go to some of those meetings, see what's happening, see what's happening in our schools. I appreciate you, Kiara, for coming on today. We didn't get to talk about a lot, but what we did talk about was very important. I think people need to understand that when you vote for school board, you are voting for curriculum changes. You are voting for the busing system. You are voting for the transparency about what's going on in the school. You're voting about discipline,
Yes.
how they're disciplining. We went from a few officers in JCPS to 70 officers, I think, on the JCPS police force. Like, do we want that? We have it now. Well, maybe we can't go back, but how are they disciplined? How are they treating our students? How are they treating our numerical minority students? How are we? I mean, we're the majority of the school students. Are they doing right by us, right? Are they doing right by our kids? So I think it's important that you make that link. Voting for your school board is also about voting on what math test is getting ready to be given out, right? It is really that simple. It's not a hard two dots to connect. So I appreciate you, Kiara. I know it was short and fast, but you gave us a lot of great information.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
Yes, of course you did. And next week, I don't have a guest. You all know how I do this. Sometimes I know who I'm going to interview next week, and sometimes I don't. So right now, I don't have anybody, but I'll have somebody by Thursday. Ha ha ha. So you all have a great day, and look forward to seeing you all at the candidate forums, all in August. There's 5 of them at all the different high schools in the different districts across Jefferson County. So you can get in contact with these people who are running to vote for what happens in your child's school. You need to know that. That's an important one you don't want to skip. So thanks a lot, and you have a great rest of your day.